So, you're playing ULTROS, the excellent, unique Metroidvania puzzle platformer gardening sim from Haddock. Maybe you're trying to connect the living network to achieve the best ending. Maybe you just want to create a landscape of beautiful creations, or perhaps you are stuck and unsure how to manipulate the plant life to do what you want. How did I get this Gnopper to grow 2 heads, 3 heads, how about 10 heads? I will be going into all of that and more in this video. I recommend that you check out my beginner's seed and fruit guide if you're new to the game, as I cover most of the basics and go into each fruit and their associated nutritional value. Though it is admittedly not as comprehensive as I initially wanted it to be. Well, now I have a fresh, new understanding, thanks in no small part to speedrunner Transcendental Anarchy for explaining some of the mechanics to me. And I plan to complete my inquiry into the vast gardening system with this advanced gardening guide. Quick spoiler warning, there might be some endgame material shown in the footage, but nothing related to the story or narrative. So first, let's do some housekeeping. Regretfully, in my first video, I forgot to include how to cause Ybarba to sprout network buds. That is relatively simple. If Ybarba is planted in a plot of soil and the vines intersect a wall, a network flower will sprout at that location on the wall, given that there is enough soil health remaining. More on that soil health later. So, an important mechanic is the growth of roots within the soil. These roots will spread out underground, and upon exiting a wall, either in a different room or the same room, a network bud will form. This is an immensely helpful mechanic when connecting the living network. The amount of roots that will grow is dependent on the amount of room that they have to grow in, and the roots will seek walls to exit out of. The best rooms have lots of space below the plant, but not so much that the roots never exit the wall. If the neighboring rooms are too far away, the roots will likely curve around to either side of the plant and make network buds there or stop growing. If there is not enough space below the plant, there won't be any room in the soil to grow many roots, hindering the size of the plant and number of network buds that the roots will generate. Now let's dive into the most important aspect of gardening, in ULTROS or in real life really. It's the soil health. This is a hidden stat until you acquire the Reader Extractor upgrade, but it is the foundational stat that determines how a given plant will grow. The soil health essentially governs how many parts of a plant can sprout. This includes everything above the ground as well as the amount of roots that can grow. This stat comes in 2 parts, the present health of the soil and the maximum possible health of the soil, represented in the Reader HUD as a fraction. Improving the health of the soil requires fertilizing, which can be done using compost, found underground using the digger, and green thumb compost. Green thumb compost is simply animal parts and fruit that you scavenge throughout the world, but it requires a Cortex upgrade to use it as fertilizer. Green thumb compost will increase the present soil health after dropping it into the soil and returning after 1 time loop. Animal parts will provide more health than plant parts, and the amount of health will vary based on the quality of the animal parts and the green thumb compost used. Regular compost will immediately increase both the present health and the maximum possible health by 100. No time loops needed for it to take effect. As a plant grows both above and below ground, it depletes the present health of the soil. When it reaches 0, the plant cannot grow until you fertilize it more. What if you need to grow a plant in a location that is barren of soil deposits? You can create new soil patches in 3 ways. The first and only required step is readily available at the start of the game, and it is simply feeding the animals. Each animal prefers a certain kind of food. For example, the common arachnids you see skittering about love anything with a nutrition car. For example, the cacumen fruit. They will eat the food and become passive. You will see hearts floating from them when you are close. Upon returning to this location, you will find a new patch of soil. The second method requires the digger extractor upgrade and, though not a necessity, a cortex ability as well that allows you to see animals on the map. When I first got this cortex ability, I thought that these icons and these lines were like arrows pointing to the animal's general location, but this is not the case. All of the smaller animals actually have nests underground, and it's these nests that are shown as the icons on the map. White lines are the tunnels leading from the nests to the surface. Using the digger, you can sever these tunnels, preventing the animals from spawning, and if you burrow into a nest, you can create new spawn points for these animals to appear at. Some nests don't have tunnels at all, so burrowing into them will spawn new animals to appear where there previously were none, after one-time loop. You can then feed them as described previously to generate a new plot of soil. The last method is mostly reserved for the end game, barring sequence breaking, however it is the easiest method. The Splicer extractor tool has an upgrade that allows you to grab animals and place them wherever you want. Simply grab your favorite ground-dwelling animal with the splicer and place them where you need the soil. Feed them their favorite fruit, and voila! So, we have looked at soil health. Let's talk about the other two stats that affect plant growth. These are the root system weight and the plant weight. Root system weight is the amount of soil health that the roots of your plant will consume, and this is governed by three things: the amount of space the roots have to grow, how easily they are able to exit the ground into another room, remember the section about the growth of roots, and the available soil health. When scanning a soil colony, this stat is represented by the total amount of soil health consumed over the maximum soil health. Note that if there is not enough room to grow, or the roots cannot exit into another room, the root system weight may never be able to reach all the way up to the maximum soil health, no matter how much you fertilize it. Plant weight is the weight of all parts of the plant that are above the ground. Using our trusty reader, you can analyze each individual part of the given plants and it will tell you the weight of that above ground component. The maximum plant weight is governed by the root system weight. The weight of all of the above ground components cannot exceed the weight of the roots. The current plant weight is also governed by the amount of room that the plant has to grow. Makes sense, right? You can even test this by using the digger to sever the roots of an already established plant, and you will find that any above ground components exceeding the reduced root weight will die. Don't worry though. The roots will automatically regenerate rather quickly, and trimming away the entire plant will cause it to regenerate. However, if you did any customization to the plant, that will be reset. I made this chart to visualize the relationship between soil health, root system weights, and plant weights. But in simple terms, soil health is the foundation that governs the root system weight, which in turn governs the maximum plant weight. If you're enjoying this video, leaving a thumbs up will ensure that the algorithm shows it to other people who are into this game. And while you're at it, why not subscribe? Maybe there's something else that I've made or will make in the future that'll catch your interest. It's free. Anyways, back to the video. So now that we have thoroughly explained the mechanisms regarding how the plants grow in ULTROS, let's talk about Gegamoja. It's the yellow slime liquid. Any plant that continues to grow through the Gegamoja can actually increase its plant weight more than its root system weight, as we see how Yubarba can easily spread out through the pools of the substance in the refinery. However, whenever the plant leaves the Gigamoja liquid, it will cease to grow, since it is, in fact, over its root weight. This is also true for what I call the corrupted Gigamoja, or the purple liquid that we see most commonly in areas surrounding the ULTROS entity. Splicing parts of one plant onto another plant is also a good way of shaping the environment to your needs. And though I covered some of my favorite splicing techniques in my beginner's seed and fruit guide, I didn't cover how much it is governed by the soil health and system weight. Well, you may have noticed a pattern by this point. A grafted scion will grow only if the root system weight allows and the soil has enough health. As you can see here, spoiler warning, in the name of science, I regretfully destroyed the beautiful Ogumumin that is found here at the bottom of Infinity Lake. In an attempt to recreate it, I hit a wall. It is possible to graft other plants onto the flowers that grow along Ogumumin's trunk. And you can see over here on the side, I grew a second tree to take parts from. However, no matter what I did, I could only grow 2 canopies before exceeding the root weight. So you can graft individual components onto a plant that will exceed its root weight. However, it will not grow any further until that root weight is increased to accommodate the new parts. So, taking all that we have talked about into account, let me show you some examples of how these concepts can be used. You may have discovered that the Gnopper plant will branch out if the stalk is trimmed away, or maybe using our reader, you have found that it can grow multiple heads. Well, let's take this to an extreme and create a Gnopper with 10 heads. Okay, Phantom from the future here. I'm just going to narrate this as we go, so you can see that I've already fertilized this plot of soil. I'm beginning to grow my Gnopper plant, and these platforms were getting in the way quite a bit, so you'll see me manipulating them so that I can actually jump around in this room. So we go from 1 to 2 to 3, and now I'm just positioning this one here on the bottom because I know that I'm going to want to do a Donkey Kong Country style creation here. And yes, the Gnoppers will eat the trimmer. They'll actually eat anything that goes into their mouth, including themselves, their own stems and flowers. You'll see that come into play in a bit here. But lots of this is just trying to get them to grow in a way that accommodates the goal of having 10 heads, but also in a way that'll let them reach all the way up to the top of the ceiling. So you see there, I trimmed away those 2 at the bottom, just because there were too many heads here at the bottom. It was taking up too much of the soil health, too low. I need them to extend. Now, one thing you might have noticed, that if you trim right at the section where it splits, then nothing will grow from there. And that allows the nutrients to reach other parts of the plant, which you'll see come into play in just a bit here. So now I've got 4 heads, we got another branch. Oh, I think you just saw that the Gnopper head like trimmed itself, and then that causes it to grow once there's room. Trimming another away, that one will branch off into 2. And a trick I learned when you're trimming, if you immediately switch to another extractor tool, the trimmer will it'll just stop right there, because it can be kind of tough as it just bounces around all over the place. It's not exactly a precise tool. You'll see me being chewed up quite a bit in this video. And again, I trimmed off one of the branches completely down to its terminus, just to allow it to get even taller. I'm not wasting nutrients, too many nutrients here with flowers at the bottom. And I don't remember if I actually scanned it again, but I believe each of the segments of the trunk is 10 weight, and the flowers are also 10 weight. So by trimming off one of the forks when it branches out, that just allows it to propagate upwards even farther. Oh, there we go. Oh, well, you can't see the branch weight here. But you can see I'm reaching the root system weight. So there, I have the 10 heads. That was the goal, but the secondary goal was to be able to Donkey Kong Country my way up to the top of the room. So now I'm going to test it out. I'm going to be manipulating the plants and the platforms, because, like I said, they kind of start to get in the way of that goal, just to achieve that end. So cool, I'm almost there. I just got to, ooh, I don't want to feed that entire top part of the plant to the flower down there. Just making some very slight adjustments, getting chewed up a bit in the process. But I think we are just about ready to try it out. Let's see if we can get all the way to the top of the room. And there you go, the Gnopper with 10 heads. Well, that was a fun experiment, and this idea can be taken even further. Check out this screenshot from Transcendental Anarchy's save file where they increased the soil health to 10,000. That is a lot of potential Gnopper heads. But now let's do a more practical experiment to wrap this video up. Throughout this save file, the one where I achieved the best ending, I actually never connected the network to the starting room near the escape pod. I just didn't need to do it for my playthrough, but using the techniques discussed in this video and my other seed guide, let's do just that. Okay, so we are starting here in the gardener's garden. I have this mushishi ready to be spliced onto. And my first stop is to grab a wilding wound, which is right here next to me, but for some reason I just didn't think to grab it. So I grabbed the top of that plant accidentally. Say my apologies, and I still have not realized that I could just grab the wound from this room. You know, there's a bunch of different ways to do this, much more efficiently, but hey, you're getting raw gameplay here. So boom, we got the wilding wound. We're gonna head back and splice that on this mushishi to extend the network even farther. So now this room has no soil deposits at all. I checked the map and there are 2 nests under here. So I'm going to tunnel to them and create some openings for new creatures to spawn. And here I believe I was going back to look for one of the arachnid enemies. Oh, grabbing some soil compost. Gotta have compost. Very helpful. Yeah, so here there's a nest. I'm tunneling to it. Have to spawn one of those for me. And you can see when I cut the root there, several parts of that Gnopper plant have died. And then I realized there is one of those enemies, those animals, I should say, right over here to the right, upper right. So I'm just gonna go grab that with my splicer. Got the arachnid. They do have actual names. I can't think of it off the top of my head right now. I'm gonna splice that here because it looks like the network is getting a little stretched. I could have taken it farther. He loves me. I'll find some new soil there. So after that prep work, I'm gonna initiate a loop and start again. Always grab the sword, unless you're going for that achievement or you want to get into the locked room that requires that you leave your sword behind. So yes, 2 animals have now spawned here. I scanned them to see what they like to eat, and they like to eat anything with car. So I'm going to go with the Kakomin fruit again. I'm just trying to bait them into grabbing the fruit. There we go. One of them got it. And here I've learned that you cannot grab enemies that are in love with you, that you've fed fruit to, or food, I should say. Some of the animals like meat. But anyway, that guy is going to leave some soil down there at the end of the room. I plant a Sprogan here because 1, Sprogan is awesome, and 2, it covers a lot of ground. And this corner over on the left, once it grows to the corner, it'll sprout network buds there. It's just inherent to Sprogan and Mushishi. As you can see. So I'm going to start a loop again. And this will be the final loop where I put all the pieces together after a little more prep work. So now I'm prepping this room. Got a trusty Sprogan here that'll create network buds around this corner for the final jump. Doesn't need to be huge. I just needed those network buds at the end. And here I was just taking a look at the roots. And also grabbing this Metroid, which if you don't know, that is the fruit of the Sprogan, and it does grow underground. And there's the soil plot above me, so I'm just going to create another network connection there, just in case I need it. And I'll use Yadiog to do that, because I'll always take an excuse to use Yadiog, because it's beautiful, and it is great for connecting the network. Just hoping that it creates a network bud. And it does. So one thing left, I need to plant something here to connect the network across this room. So I'll start with a Devidaru, which is my other favorite. And you'll see that it always grows in kind of a strange pattern. So you'll need to use the sprayer tool to help guide it. But the other problem I ran into is that the soil does not have enough health. One thing I didn't mention earlier in the video is that when an animal creates a plot of soil, that soil will start with a maximum of 100 health. Which, as you will see, that is just not enough to even reach the ceiling here. And even if it could, it's not enough to give branches and create network buds after. So I went with a plan B, which would be Eubarba, trying to connect it to this wall on the left, because when it connects to a wall, it will sprout a bud. But I think because of this foreground asset, I could never actually see if it's creating that network bud. So I go back to plan A. And after creating some more soil plots, which in the end I will not need, but just doing some prep in case. Nothing feels worse than almost making a network connection. So I've got 2 friendly animals there. If I do need to do another loop, there will be 2 more soil plots there. And now I'm going to grab some compost. I think now is when I thought, oh, I'm just going to fertilize the soil and try Devidaru again, because Devidaru will create all the network connections I need if it can grow along the ceiling. So far I've got 2 compost and now 3. So that'll bring the soil health up to maximum health up to 400, which would be plenty for what I need now. So I'm directing it up to the ceiling and success. Look at all those healthy fruits. It is growing way farther than I anticipated. The branches are even reaching into the next room, and as you can see, there are plenty of network connections, network buds, just ready to be connected. So we're just gonna go for it. Grab my network connection here and make the final push. And there you have it. I think I used just about every technique we talked about in this video to connect the network to the entry room. So with that, I will conclude this video. I hope you leave a comment if you found it useful or have any questions and concerns related to this topic. Don't forget to like the video, maybe even subscribe if you're so inclined. It really helps this small channel grow and to get this information out to even more people. Don't forget to check out Transcendental Anarchy's channel for some speedrunning fun. It's linked in the description, and big thanks to them for helping. Until next time, stay green.